We had some time today, so one of the things some people ask us is, how do you find your way across the country on a bicycle ride? Uh, Modern days, everybody uses their phone and Google Maps or Apple Maps, their iPhone, the GPS in their car. But we're on bicycles, and yes, we do have our cell phones, but John and I prefer to navigate by maps. So we'll show you the process and show you the maps that we use to ride our bicycles over 4,000 miles. And what I'd like to say is the adventure cycling route that we're on, we have maps for the entire 4,000 plus miles that we're going to ride. So we'll get into what the maps look like and how we navigate. Okay, and how do we navigate? Okay, like I said, John and I prefer to use the paper maps, and we use Google as a backup. So what you have here, I'll use this section of the adventure cycling map. To get across the country, it's 12 maps, was it?
Yes.
Yeah, 12 maps. And on each one of those maps, they break it down into segments to try to cram as much information in there as possible. So depending upon which way you're riding, if you're going from west to eastbound, they got cue sheets that have written directions on where to turn at what mile marker. If you're going westbound from, say, like we are from Yorktown to Oregon or Washington, you'd follow the westbound cue cards. But on a day-to-day type of thing, what we would do is, if this is our starting point, we would take the odometer on our bikes and reset it to 0. So go ahead and reset this one. Reset it to 0. Takes a couple seconds. And then we would take off. So here we'd have a point that we knew we were at. And if we take a look here, the distance all the way to this match point here is 6.2 miles. So by starting it at a known, working your way to a known, you know what that distance would be. So we know that distance on the map is 6.2 miles, but what happens if I'm only 2 miles into it? Well, I got the legend up here. It's basically a finger width apart, and you would just take your finger, you put it in there, you would say, okay, we went 2 miles. I should be right here by Wine Hill Road. What you have to pay attention to is right here you see this little black F. That corresponds to input off the cue card. And here it says at 3.8 miles on Wine Hill, turn left onto County Road 5. So with our odometer, we would watch that, and as we approach that 5-mile mark, we'd start looking for County Road 5 to make that left turn on. One of the things that we did to prevent from getting lost, because you can really get turned around, is every time we came to one of our points on the cue sheet, we would stop, verify that's exactly where we were, what our next turn would be as we traverse the country. In Virginia and Kentucky, a lot of turns, and it's really easy to miss your turn and get lost. But if you take your time, the 15-second stop could be an hours of riding out of the way on the bicycle if you miss your turn. So it's always real important to have this technique down. And John and I, we've made some mistakes, but we caught them right away, because it's like, wait a minute, my trip meter is not matching up. Stop. We talk, figure out what's going on, and then we'll make the correction. So we've been really good at not getting lost using paper maps without the help of Google Maps. So we would continue that process from point to point, and then there's different things that you would find on there, like railroad crossings. You would see that, and you would say, okay, in this situation here, I'm about 5 miles to this railroad crossing. So we'd be watching for those landmarks, or intersecting roads with road numbers. There's landmarks, and we always made sure whoever was in front, you point out, hey, we got a landmark, just so we could both be exactly sure where we were at on the map. Now, like I said, there are instances where we use Google Maps, and where we would use those would be in a city environment where using the maps to make those changes in road directions gets a little more trickier. So like here in Farmington, here's a good example. They had a detail of the route through Farmington, but a lot of times what we would do is we would find it on Google Maps. We would find, you know, the basic route, and we just turn the computer on, or the phone on, the app on, put it on the handlebars on the bike, and just follow that through town. You know, there's lots of cars. You got curbs. There's all kinds of distractions that could be there, and the main thing is safety. And we found that the safest way to navigate through town was to use Google Maps. But beyond that, we use the adventure cycling maps for navigation. It brings more adventure to the bike tour. You know, traveling at 9-10 miles an hour, seeing everything, smelling everything, hearing everything. You know, going through these small towns, you feel like Huck Finn on a bicycle, and the maps just add to that overall experience of just the big adventure. You know, it's really easy to jump on the interstate, turn on Google Maps, and go from point A to point B. It's not about getting to the destination on a bike tour. It's the adventure of getting there. And so navigating by maps, if you ask anybody who bike tours, they like to do it that way because it just brings you closer to what it is to do a bike tour.